Political mind games. Tyrone Bowman. Let's talk about it. Republicans are telling lies to black voters. In an article I found, according to MSNBC, quote, right wingers are spreading misinformation to black voters through podcasts and influencers. A new report highlights how far the right is spreading propaganda through often overlooked channels. Well, they're called outright lies. Lie, cheat, steal, divide, and you conquer. Unify, and you win. And too many of us will not stick together no matter what. So let me read this article. According to MSNBC, a new report released Tuesday highlights how the far right is spreading misinformation to black voters through popular influencers and social media podcasts. Over the past few years on the Read Out blog, this is what the writer of the article is saying, by Jahan Jones of MSNBC, quote, I've written extensively about how popular, ostensibly black news media outlets, influencers, and hip hop podcasters have been used to spread far right propaganda, misinformation, or undermine civic engagement. This report is easily the most thorough examination I've seen into how false and manipulative claims make their way from bad actors to black votes. Quote unquote. The writer of the article says, I clicked on it so fast that I almost hammered a hole in my desk. The report analysts or analysis from the organization Annex Impact can be found. All right? So, NBC News summarized it well. Quote, at least 40 million Americans may be regularly targeted and fed disinformation within black online spaces by a host of sources across social media, fueling false information around the election, according to a new report published Tuesday, touted as the first deep dive into understanding disinformation targeting black America. The report, published by Onyx Impact, a nonprofit organization working to combat disinformation within the black community, identified half a dozen core online networks, quote, reaching or targeting, close quote, black Americans online with false and misleading narratives, unquote. The report highlights how extremists and other misinformation peddlers use outlets and influencers popular among black folks to spread far-right claims and indoctrinate audiences with a conservative worldview. It lists several gateway influencers and platforms, media entities that are popular among black folks and have been targeted by extremists that have promoted misleading or bigoted views. The list mentions the online tabloid The Shade Room, the syndicated radio show The Breakfast Club, Influencer 19 Keys, the Joe Budden podcast, the Stephen A. Smith Show, and the podcast Earn Your Leisure. None of the aforementioned platforms responded to NBC News' request for comment. The report notes that some of these outlets, large audiences, could make them very useful in dispelling false and misleading claims, but it also highlights how some of these entities have already platformed extremist right-wingers. It also talks about some other concepts we've discussed here on the blog, including efforts to promote anti-immigrant sentiment within the black community. A Trumpian strategy we're seeing unfold today, and efforts to promote toxic hyper-masculinity among black men. And it talks about how artificial intelligence tools will likely exacerbate the spread of targeted disinformation without measures to combat it. But it's not all doom and gloom. The report includes suggestions on how to combat the spread of disinformation to black influencers and outlets, close quote. Let me just say this. This is why it's so important for everybody to do your own research, do your own homework. Take the time to read thoroughly. Take the time to examine information for yourself. AI is so targeted with misinformation. That's the reason why I read a lot of things that have nothing to do with social media. Nothing. I take my time and read extensively. Yeah, telling lies to black voters. This is the topic on political mind games. Telling lies. If black people weren't so important, then why are Republicans, through Donald Trump, courting the black vote? Because he knows that you're not going to win without us. That's the bottom line. If black voters don't matter, then why are the Republicans suddenly going to black churches? Because you know the black preacher, for some chicken dinners and an offering, they will sell everybody out. Yeah, I said it because it's true. Many of them just want to come on television or just be with a presidential candidate, and many of them do not care about their congregations or their constituency as a whole. And it's sad that parishioners and congregations across America are being peddled and used, especially by the evangelical white Christians, to spread disinformation continuously over and over and over again about us as a people. And this is why people must remember the past. Don't tell me that the past doesn't matter. There's a slogan that says never again, and rightfully so. The Holocaust should have never happened under Adolf Hitler. It was hideous. It was terrible. And 6 million of our Jewish brothers and sisters were needlessly murdered through Nazism propaganda. Never forget the Holocaust. Never forget the past. Never forget the Black Holocaust through the transatlantic slave occurrence that happened in America. Too many individuals want to forget the past. And I was doing some research yesterday, and I found out, and I'll talk about this in a separate video, about the late Henry Ford, the autocrat, the automobile magnate of his time, and his views on so many things that were totally wrong, telling black voters lies. This is what's happening every single day. I hate that thing called, quote, blacks for Trump, close quote. What do you mean, blacks for Trump? What the hell kind of slogan is that? I don't see anything that says whites for Trump. So why do we have to always be marginalized and signaled out? Why are our people not really paying attention, reading, writing, researching? Do your own homework. Research thoroughly Biden. Research thoroughly Trump. Research thoroughly the Republican Party. Research thoroughly the Democratic Party. Research it, read, dig, and probe until you find exactly what you're looking for. Intelligently make your decisions. I'm not telling you who to vote for or not to vote for. Intelligently make your own decisive decisions. This is why I call it political mind games. And once the election is over, I won't be talking about political mind games anymore. But for now, this topic must be discussed. And I'll be talking about each candidate once this debate is over, their strengths and their weaknesses. I will be fair to Mr. Trump, and I'll be fair to Mr. Biden. Why? Because each person has the right to be portrayed accurately and truthfully rather. Some people might not like political mind games. Well, it's not for everybody. But what you see happening in our world today, we must pay attention to everything that's happening, to everything that's going on. I'll conclude by saying this. Every vote matters. Vote early. Don't wait until election day to vote. Every person matters rather. Every ethnic group matters, be they Republican or Democrat. This presidential election is going to be one of the most divisive elections of all time. Not only is it going to be an important election, but you're going to find out where people's minds are and where their hearts are. And let me say this about posters. Posters are only one-sided. They never talk to black people. They don't poll black people. They don't call black people. They don't come into black neighborhoods like we aren't intelligent enough to speak in an articulate fashion, like we don't have opinions and about different matters. There are some black Republicans. They have a right to be a Republican if they choose to, and black people shouldn't get upset if somebody who's black wants to support Donald Trump. That's their prerogative. That is their right. The Democratic Party does not own the black vote. As a matter of fact, the Democrats have taken their black vote for granted for so long. And I've also oftentimes asked this question: what does the Congressional Black Caucus actually do for black people? Nothing. You never hear about them until it's time for them to be up for re-election. So, if a lot of black people decide to leave the Democratic Party and vote for Mr. Trump, that's their constitutional right. And individuals shouldn't be so upset about it. After all, the Democratic Party hasn't been fair to black men. I'm Tyrone Bowman, political